Hey everybody, it's your boy Funkmaster Bex, and I'm back. I'm not me. I mean, we're all back, but we're talking about one of our favorite series, Fooly Cooley. Holy shit!
Hell yeah!
We're gonna be foolying and we're gonna be cooling around. Fooly Cooley, something like that, right? Today I've got Kaverik. What's up, buddy?
Hey! I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk about one of my favorite anime of all time, and also its sequels. So yeah. Glad to be here.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to be talking about those. Those definitely
favorite
exist,
anime and also its sequels.
Yeah, and also sequels.
And we got Sinrus.
Hey
What's
guys, all right. Tag yourself on the Fooly Cooley soundtrack. I'm Blues Drive Monster.
I was like, okay, I'll say I'm Last Dinosaur.
Damn!
Oh, you really picked Last Dinosaur?
You took it. Then I'm Funny Bunny.
Okay,
Nice.
Funny Bunny is great. If you want, I can take Beautiful Morning with you. That shit slaps.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one. Actually, Hybrid Rainbow is something I would probably...
You know what else is really good? Is fucking I Think I Can. That shit, oh my god.
Every song pretty much.
Every song is great. So like my favorite, not to get us off track, but my favorite song from the soundtrack is Last Dinosaur. And this is not a flex, but when I went to see The Pillows in concert a few years back, they played like every song from the original soundtrack except for Last Dinosaur. I was actually kind of miffed about that. I was seriously like
That sucks.
disappointed.
Oh, damn.
I wouldn't say I was like seriously disappointed, but I was like, there's a little tear from my eye. I was like, it's a little sad for
Yeah.
that.
My favorite song from the soundtrack changes so often.
It's, it kind of changes on your mood. It's such a moody show, actually.
Yeah, same. I believe
Maybe
it's
a
still...
hot take, but actually my favorite might be Thank You, My Twilight,
Really?
which isn't even in the original series.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just listening to the ED for Alternative. That shit slaps. Love
Is that a
song.
Spiky Seeds?
Yeah.
It's a spike. It's something Overhead, I think.
Oh, Star. Yeah.
Yeah, Star Overhead. That shit. I love the visuals for that too. It's nice.
Spiky Seeds is the other one.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway,
okay. So yeah, we're already talking about our favorite shit, but I guess how do we want to like go about this? Do we just want to like get into like how we got into the series? At least?
Probably. First, probably we need to talk about what Furikuri means to us, because I just checked our mouths. I knew about it, and we probably need to be straight with our listeners as well, that for us all, Furikuri is a top 5 anime on Mal for all 3 of us.
Oh, yeah.
And it is one of our actually favorite, not even like one of the most liked or loved series of all time. It's like one of the series of all time for us. And
It's crazy because we've all been like long-time fans of the show too.
yeah. And
Super
so
long time.
expect a lot of gushing and praise about the series,
We're gonna
because
get emotional.
yeah,
It's gonna get fully cool.
yeah, it means a lot.
We're gonna overflow. Actually, that's a better way to put it. We're gonna overflow.
Yeah. We're gonna overflow. Yeah. But for me, actually, my first experience with Furikuri was kind of divisive, I would say, because it was suggested to me by my friend, who like a casual viewer, who like, oh, you want this very crazy, very Japanese show? You can watch Furikuri.
So
I was
random.
like, all right, and I watched it, and I was like, what the hell is this? What's the point of this? Like, it's crazy. It's kind of cool. It's nothing like I watched before, but I don't get it. So I slapped it as like 6 or 7. I don't even remember. And I was like,
Ouch.
okay, it's fine. It's like I experienced it and I'm fine. Then like probably like 2 years after, I was like, I mean, it's only 6 episodes. People talk about it all the time. Maybe I need to give it another try. I watched it and I was like, damn, it kind of slaps, you know? It's cool. I enjoy the themes. I enjoy the series. I enjoy the presentation. I enjoy like the mood. And I placed it at 9. And after that, I actually kind of made it a habit to rewatch Furikuri once a year or something like that. And that's how it eventually ended in my like top 5 series of all time. And now it's actually means like a lot to me because it's a series that somewhat not. It kind of makes me appreciative of who I am and of my life, I guess. It's I know it's weird to say it, put it like that, but it kind of like I started watching anime when I was like 20 and now I'm almost 30, and all of these years I was like growing myself up with Furikuri as well, so it's kind of shaped me as well. So yeah,
totally.
I think also I don't know if you wanted to go next, Sinrus, but I wanted to jump on what Kat was saying, is that like you kind of grew up with the show. I first watched it when I was in like maybe 3rd or 4th grade. I saw it on Adult Swim.
Oh, so you saw it when it was airing?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And obviously when you're a kid and you're watching something like Fooly Cooly, I think it was actually the baseball episode that I watched. So it was like extremely, I didn't say what the fuck as a child, but I had that same reaction of like, well, what did I just watch? You know what I mean?
That's probably the weirdest episode.
It's funny because I also watched the first when I was like in grade school. I also watched the Congratulations episode of Evangelion, and I thought that was weird as hell.
Yeah.
Like,
it was.
Oh, dude, it's like, so if you have like no context of the show whatsoever, you watch the opening, and it's like a bunch of half-naked women, and you're like, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah.
And then you get to like, basically like, what is like a teenager having like a mental breakdown in the last episode, and you're like, well, what the fuck, dude? Anyway, it's a
you're
I have
just
a weird
wishing
relationship with that
best,
show.
basically.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
No, I always watch things at the worst possible time in my life, I guess. But it's funny because like it's a show that meant a lot to me when I watched it as a kid, but like I didn't really get it as a kid, if that makes sense, right? Kind of like what I think, kind of similar to Cav. Like you only gave it like a 6 or 7, but like it was a favorite of mine for like very much nostalgia reasons. And then I like rewatched it like as I became like a teenager, right? This is like back when I got into anime for like realsies, right? So I was like, oh, I'm gonna rewatch Fooly Cooly, see how that turns out, because I remember watching it on Adult Swim as a kid. I thought it was really fun. Didn't understand really what was going on or what it meant more often than not, but it hits different when you're older, I think. One thing I wanted to say is like, no matter like the thing with Fooly Cooly is that like it hits kind of differently when you're at different stages of your life emotionally. This last time that I rewatched it, it hit way different than the last time I watched it. I was like, now that I'm watching it like as like a 25-year-old adult, as opposed to watching it as a teenager, is like it's like a completely different show almost. Like it's still funny as shit. It's still like really fun to watch. It's an exciting show, but like it's not why I like it necessarily, right? It's like the emotional core is what's like the most interesting about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, totally. I'm very curious to hear more about how you think your the way you processed it changed as you got older.
We can get into that later, but that's just basically how I got into the show.
I just find it interesting that your first experience with Furikuri was you in the 3rd or 4th grade, and it's actually
very close to like Naota's age. Yeah,
it's actually even younger than Naota. Yeah. And
that's
like,
the crazy
I feel
part.
like it's even intentional that you probably were not impressed by the show, because Naota himself was not impressed by his ordinary
Naota
life.
was not impressed with literally anything in life.
Yeah, so I feel like it's appropriate. Yeah.
My story with Fooly Cooly is actually pretty similar to Cav's, but kind of in a sped up fashion, even. And this is a story I talked about recently on another pod. but neither of you two were on it, so I'll count it here as well. Which is that I watched Fooly Cooly at the end of a long weekend in which I binged all of the Tatami Galaxy, all of Maoru Penguin Drum, and all of Fooly Cooly in the space of 4 days. Oh my god,
you're like going to be like... I don't even know how to... I don't even know how to describe it. You're just going to be like totally burned after that, in a good way, I think.
So, like, obviously that was when I peaked as an anime watcher. Also, by the time I was done with Fooly Cooly, my brain was completely fried.
No
and
wonder.
I was like, okay, I have no idea what to think about any of this. I just dropped it at a 6. Basically the same thing you did, Cav. But then, like, that didn't feel right, you know? Like, it was living, like, so in my head. Like, there was so obviously more to it that I just didn't know how to process. That score was just, like, a placeholder. So the next day, I watched all of Fooly Cooly again. And I think after that, I maybe knocked it up to like an 8. And I read some stuff about, you know, what's the symbolism in the show mean? You know, what are the themes I'm supposed to be looking for and stuff? And a little while later, I watched it again. And then I kind of made it a thing like, for the next 6 months, I think I rewatched Fooly Cooly like at least once a month. And
wow.
Over the course of that time, it very quickly ratcheted all the way up to one of the few 10s on my list and my second favorite show of all time.
Yeah. I mean, you had Naota as your Discord avatar for a long time. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's still my Mal profile too. Mm-hmm. The shot of him holding the guitar at the end, like with his back to the camera.
Yep. So yeah, rewatching it every month is crazy. It's actually insane.
Yeah, it's crazy actually. I like that you kept watching it after being burnt out from it. Like, holy shit, that's great.
I know.
You're like, you know what? Fuck
like,
this. Fuck this burning sensation in my muscles. I'm gonna keep working out, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't at my best when I watched it the first time. Like, I needed to be able to revisit it.
Well, yeah, I mean, after you watch like something like Penguin Drum or like Tatami Galaxy, which like really kind of fucks with you a lot of the time. Like, at least for me, Tatami Galaxy like put me in a really weird state after I watched it.
Yeah,
it was weird as hell. So I like then going into like Fooly Cooly after that, I'm like, I don't think I could do that. That would just fuck with me.
Yeah, but in any case, what I wanted to say is that it is a show with various like sides to it. So with every single rewatch, you can focus on some kind of specific thing, pay attention only to it, and like view for it from a different angle, and then you will come out from different experience and like with different stuff to take from.
Totally.
Because there are like so many. The show is so brief. It's like 3 hours, not even 3 hours.
It's actually very dense for its time.
Yeah, and there's still so much content, so many things that you can engage yourself with. So it's no wonder it's so rewatchable, because there are like so many science sides to the show.
Yeah, and there are so many little things in it that, you know, it'll just flash up on the screen for a second, and not in a way that really makes you pay any attention to it, but that's so like valuable.
I've always seen that as like a nice
that.
bonus if you understand that, but it's not like you have to get that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, like one detail in the first episode that I missed the first couple times I watched it is it just shows on screen for like literally 1 second a letter that Naota's brother sent to him. And you just see like the bottom half of a photo of like a guy and a blonde chick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it has written on it like in Japanese upside down, like, "Hey bro, I got myself an American girl," or something like that.
Guess who I'm banging.
Yeah. Right. And it's like that informs so much of, you know, how Naota feels about his relationship with and responsibilities towards Mamimi.
Yep.
You know, and it's so easy to miss if you're just like not processing at the exact 1 second that that's on screen.
Yeah, it just tells a lot about Naota himself, his relationship with his brother, how he views himself in the world, and in relation to his family overall, and yeah, his relationship with Mamimi, and also his complexes and fears, and it's all like in this photo and in these little details that the anime conveys very well through like short dialogues and this like little details, as you said.
Yeah, for sure. Becker, when you rewatched it today, what was the focus that you were on this time? Like, what level were you engaging with it at?
I guess what I noticed in this time around was like dynamic, like relationships and dynamics between characters. That's what I kind of like tend to focus on, at least this time through. I noticed I spent a lot of time focusing on Mamimi this time. I don't focus. Every other time I watched it, I would either focus on like Naota or like Ninamori, who's like my favorite character in the show, right?
Yeah.
Her episode is fucking phenomenal. But it's funny because like Mamimi's not in the show that much, actually. She doesn't appear as like a big force in the show, if that makes sense, until like the very end.
For sure.
But like it's more like it's what's not said, if that makes sense. That's kind of more important with Mamimi.
Yeah.
I feel like is like her relationship to Naota, which actually is more or less her relationship to his brother, who felt very sorry for her. It didn't like hit me like, oh, Mamimi, not me, but Naota's brother just kind of felt really sorry for Mamimi after the whole fire thing. I was like, wow, she's kind of a really damaged person. And I don't know, something that like I wanted to focus on was like, well, why is Mamimi like this kind of thing?
Mamimi is my favorite character.
It's interesting that everyone kind of has a different favorite character from the show. Like everyone has like their own like person that they stan, and like they're all valid options. That's the cool part. But I also wanted to focus on like Haruko. I also like paid attention to like Haruko's relationship to Naota, and it made me hate Haruko a lot as a person.
Oh yeah,
like she's a total asshole. Holy shit,
she's awful.
She just leaves everyone in like the garbage like behind her at this point. It also like made me see like the sequels a little bit differently too. But yeah, I mean, there's like Haruko's relationship with Naota. There's Naota's relationship with like Ninamori, which is interesting. A lot of parallels with that. It was less about like the story, if that makes sense. Like, oh, what's happening next is more like, well, how are these characters feeling at the moment? Like, what are they going through, kind of thing. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of like character dramas lately, so like watching like people with interpersonal relationships is more interesting to me right now, I guess. So I was like, okay. And plus, like, you know, to get back to like, you know, more emotional things in my life, I'm kind of focusing on like dynamics in my life or relationships in my life and how they're playing out, kind of thing. And it's maybe like kind of like look out for that sort of thing in Fooly Cooly, which is kind of a show that's like begged to be analyzed in that regard, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, it's hard to explain because it's very personal, but like the show is like very like it gets like kind of shitty relationships down so well, actually. It nails it on the head.
Yeah.
I don't know how else
especially
to explain
with Mamimi, like the way all of her relationships are like so dysfunctional is really perfectly executed.
Yep.
No, I don't think she has a single good relationship with anyone in the show.
No.
Not even with like the little robot dog. It's a weird like relationship too.
Yeah.
It is.
It's interesting that you said though about how like Tasuku really just like felt bad for her after the fire and everything, because I felt like one of the biggest unanswered questions in the show is that we don't really have any insight into how Tasuku really felt about her. I thought,
it's funny because like I mean that was like kind of my personal interpretation.
Yeah.
But it's like it's funny that Naota's brother is like kind of a huge force in the show, and you don't realize it, even though he never shows up in the show really. Right. Such a huge force for a lot of things that happen, as far as like character motivations.
But I think it would change a lot if we could know, what his relationship with Mamimi was actually like, Were they actually dating? Like, did he actually care about her? Was this all just like a one-sided, like, savior complex thing that she had towards him? I feel
like the way that it's framed, it almost feels like it is kind of one-sided, it feels like.
Yeah.
That's at least, because I don't think Naota's brother ever, like, officially, I guess, quote unquote, broke it off with Mamimi when he went to America, right? Because, like,
yeah, it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, which would be kind of like reinforced by the whole he's banging like the blonde from America kind of thing, right? Like,
right.
That's kind of the detail that made me think, okay, well, I don't think there was ever anything like super concrete between them. It was more like a time and place kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like he just went to pursue his career and like do his own thing, and she was just left behind. And
yeah, no, I think she, like I said, I think she was just kind of there. That like she was just someone there at the time, and he was just, I guess, it just kind of happened, and then like probably didn't think too much about it, and then just fucked off to America to go play baseball, essentially.
Yeah, and then
I think Mamimi never like saw it that way. I think she saw it like way more, but I think she might just have attachment issues, to be honest.
She does,
right.
And probably my single favorite line in the whole series is happening in the first episode, and it's Mamimi saying that how, like, to the question, does she still love her brother? She says, well, I like him more than the stale bread crusts. And
how do you interpret that line?
It hits a lot. It hits like very heavily, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious how you guys interpret that line personally.
I think that line,
because there's a lot of lines that are just like said and you're just like not really sure what it means.
I feel like it means that there are not that many things that Mamimi values in her life, but and she doesn't know that many things in her life other than stale bread crusts, but she values Naota's brother more than these things. Even if it's not a lot, it means a lot for her.
Yeah, I think that, like, because the bread she's talking about is, like, she had just gone to their family bakery and, like, Naota's dad gave her the leftover bread crusts, So I kind of interpret it on top of what Cav was just saying as, like, this is kind of, like, this stale bread is basically what she has left of him. And in that,
you can say the same about Naota as well, right?
Yeah, that's true. But it's kind of like, it's not exactly a glowing endorsement of how she actually felt about him when he was there, but it's saying, whatever that was, it was better than what I have now,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess now that I'm like hearing what you guys have to say about the stale bread and comparing it to Naota's brother, makes me think that whole relationship was just totally awful. Like, just the worst thing. Like, no one benefited from any of this shit.
Right.
Yep. And we all learn about it, like, very... It all makes sense, but we all learn it so... tangentially, I would say. Like, it's not even a focus, but piecing it all together, it all makes sense, and it all makes, like, sense in the whole picture of the show, and how Mamimi behaves. And, and second episode, which is very heavily Mamimi focused, is actually kind of tragic in a big way, at least for me. And it's probably the darkest episode in the series as well, at least for me, because it's just so heavy on Mamimi's psyche, on her past, on how she struggles with who she is and how she tries to survive in the world, and her inner demons as well, and how she tries to belong somewhere. It's scary.
Yeah, I think the second episode might be my favorite of the show.
Yeah, it's up there for sure.
Yeah, for that exact reason. I think it's like the densest episode in terms of like those kinds of things I was talking about, where they're just like little details sprinkled in that you really need to be like looking out for in order to catch. And it does such a good job of just showing how damaged Mamimi is and why she is the way she is and how she got here. And I think another really interesting thing about the character is another unanswered question is that we don't really know anything about like what Mamimi's like life is like outside of.
Oh yeah, we don't even hear about her parents or family situation or whatever.
Yeah, it's
all we know is that she just lives at the river, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And when Naota's dad gives her the bread, that night he asks Naota like, "Oh, is Mamimi's family poor? Would you say?" Mm-hmm. I've seen people interpret that like she's homeless, you know.
I can see that. That actually makes a lot of sense, but I don't.
Which I can see that feel like totally.
She's. I don't know. Maybe she's homeless because maybe her real quote unquote living situation is like shitty, and she doesn't want to go back there, kind of thing. So she'd rather just hang out by the river or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm not totally sure. It's obviously never stated, but it is kind of interesting to think about because whatever you interpret, it kind of impacts how you feel about like the character's motivations.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the second episode overall is just... I also really like this comparison to the game that she has with arsonism and stuff.
Yeah.
It's and how she explains the rules. It's actually very chilly, even. Like I don't know. It's it hits hard again. It's very like when that realization strikes. How it all ties together, and that arson of the school as well, and what is happening like in the show itself with this weird ritual that she tries to uptake. It's very, you know that something is wrong. It's like it's wrong on like some inner deeper level.
Yeah, that's like
a weird
montage it plays. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. So this is a really dumb question now that I think about it. But, like, what is the age requirement for buying cigarettes in Japan?
That's a great question.
Because, I'm pretty sure Mamimi is under, like, 18 or something.
Yeah, she's 17.
In high school. Yeah. So I'm like, where does she get all these, like, fucking cigarettes? Does she might steal them? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. But I don't know. Just something I thought about while I was watching it. But... Sorry, you were saying something way more important, Sinrus.
The law prohibits the purchase and the smoking of cigarettes to persons under the age of 20. So she's not supposed to be smoking.
Oh, what a hooligan.
Yeah. But yeah, I was going to say that the like montage scene that plays when Naota picks up her Game Boy or whatever it's supposed to be.
The flashback montage or...
No, the one where, you know, it's explaining how you play Firestarter and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's really chilling. It's a creepy scene.
It is.
Yeah.
And, it's also just crazy how... It's interesting how this... episode basically sort of explains Mamimi, but she doesn't get better after this, honestly.
Oh, no.
And it only gets worse after that because she clings to Naota even more after he, with Kanti's help, saved her.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was going to do wonders for her mental health, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do we want to go like episode by episode? That might actually be a good way of handling this, just because there's so much we can talk
character
about.
by character, if
Bex was
focusing on the characters this time around.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we've done Mamimi. Do we want to go on Naota next?
Well, I think if we're doing Mamimi, then there's more stuff later on that
right. Okay, we can keep going with Mamimi for sure.
I want to get into with her too, because I think that like the most poignant bit of Mamimi's development is, you know, not even in the second episode, which is like the one that's totally devoted to her and everything, but later on in the fifth episode.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, it's like after, Naota swings the bat and everything, and he becomes
he's like Mr. Muchacho. He's big dick energy over here.
Like, he becomes like Mr. Big Dick Energy and everything. And
then she doesn't want to hang out with him anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's made very uncomfortable by Naota, like extremely. Right. And then right after that scene, he has like the stupid boner robot, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh god, I love that.
She doesn't want to, and then like the like big gun robot, like the huge hand in a trench coat looking motherfucker, shows up, and like they're both trapped on top of the robot's head, right?
Not suggestive at all, of course.
Of course, yeah. And at one point, she like starts crying, and she like screams for Tasuku to save them. And Naota has his like big dick I'm an adult moment, but for real this time, where he's like, stop calling for my brother, I'm the one that's going to save you. And I think that the way that she constantly tries to replace Tasuku with other people, I think becomes really clear right there, just how obviously just a coping mechanism it is. Because like they never tell you that she used to call Tasuku Takun, but it makes more sense as a nickname than it does for Naota does. And then after Naota like stops hanging out with her, she like adopts the cat that she starts calling Takun, and then like she finds the little robot dog in the 6th episode, and she starts calling that Takun.
Lord Canty also Takun, I think, at one point. I'm not totally sure, but like I think she sees Lord Canty as like almost a similar type of coping mechanism.
Right. It's another like savior figure who can give her his blessing,
salvation.
But like she does all of this stuff to try to replace Tasuku as like a part of her life. But when it comes down to it, like she doesn't really care about any of them the same way. When she's in danger, it's the real original guy that she wants.
It's rather shallow dependency.
Yeah.
And when Naota becomes badass, that he is in 5th episode, she doesn't care for it actually. And first of all, she is struck with actual jealousy because he Naota hangs out with Haruko more and more, and Mamimi is not dumb. She sees that Naota replaced Mamimi with Haruko, and she sees it. And at this point, she's not interested in strong and reliable Naota. She's not. She won't. It was like a codependency in a way because. Naota needed Mamimi because, he needed some kind of replacement for a brother, and the same goes for Mamimi as well. They're kind of coping on it.
But they both have different relationships with their brother. That's kind of the interesting part.
Yeah, and I know like both for them is a coping mechanism, but it obviously was a very toxic relationship.
It was very toxic,
not sustainable, and in a way, Haruko broke it. In only the way Haruko could. So, yeah. And as you said, Sinrus, it was a very, like, a shallow thing for her because she was eventually just still looking for Naota's brother Tasuku. And that was mostly it. It's just interesting how it all came to surface, like, in this kind of climatic way in 5th episode.
Yeah, for sure.
And after that, in the 6th episode, she nurtures this kind of robot, how would you even say, not even antagonist, but kind of an antagonist as well, to Naota, and she's basically at this point a bystander to the story, and then she just leaves.
Yeah. It's like, in the way that she nurtures that robot that ends up being an antagonist is also a good sign of like, the way all of her coping mechanisms always come back to bite her.
Yeah.
It's like she always puts her faith in something that ends up betraying her one way or another.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I didn't even think about it like that. Jesus. You blew my mind with that. Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess Canty doesn't betray her because Canty could never hurt anything, but...
Yeah, because Canty's just a robot that just can't even need bread.
Right.
Yeah, but there are many things to be said about it, and there is the whole another layer of Furikuri that we will probably talk about later, that there's like this kind of dystopian setting of the series, and that when Mamimi's mind was at its cloudest when she was nurturing the robot, she was helping medical mechanic to actually finish the iron and the idea of ironing out the planet eventually. So she was basically somewhat of a puppet of a corporation at that point. It's also kind of a thing. Now we can probably move on to some other character.
Do we want to talk about Naota next or Haruko?
Let's go with Naota.
Okay.
Naota, the main character. Let's go.
How do you guys feel about Naota, like, as a character?
You're like saying that there are like your favorite characters. I feel like Naota is my favorite character. I don't know if it's Naota or Haruko. I know it's very banal choices. But I feel like they're just the most fleshed out and developed characters and the most interesting in the series, for me at least. Naota is a very... I don't know, I feel like he's very purposeful. Like, it's hard to love him because of how cynical he is and how childish he is as well, despite trying so hard to be an adult in a world, in a series where there are no adults, by the way.
Right.
But at the same time, he's such a compelling character overall because of his story arc, because of his journey through this incredible, crazy series, and how he actually still tries to maintain his cool, and how he eventually succumbs to Haruko's charms, and how he still, despite Haruko using him in the end, still finds a better way, a better lesson out of it all, and becomes a better person ultimately.
Yeah. Do you think it's fair to say that he doesn't really have a lot of positive qualities?
It's hard to say because I believe in the, like... At the start of the series, he's not a blank character, but he is a very ordinary character, I would say. He's just a kind of cynical boy. He's on the smart side, I guess. But he doesn't really look beyond the veil of this dystopian city with an iron in its center. And he doesn't really understand the value of choices before him and stuff like that, but it all changes later, and at the start he's just a normal boy, basically. I don't know.
He's just some kid.
Yeah.
Rather, would you say he's like sheltered? To some extent.
No, I don't think he's sheltered.
I
Okay.
don't think he's sheltered,
I think he's just cynical, and he just doesn't really know what to do with himself. Because he's
simply just a kid, right? He has no real-world experience.
It's not about even that. It's about his family. Because he has a rather crazy father who is actually...
Who wrote a book about the deep mysteries of Ava. I love
that line.
That's hilarious, yeah. And grandfather as well. And there are no maternity figure in the series at all for him.
I just realized he doesn't really have a mom.
They never even mention a mom, right?
Yeah, mom is never mentioned in the picture, ever.
Yeah. And that's another, like, point of dynamic with him and the Mamimi and Haruko.
I just wondered if that was, like, some sort of, like, I wouldn't say maternal figure, but, like, in Haruko? That's just me kind of spitballing. I'm thinking about this, like, on the spot, but, like, I kind of wonder if there was, like, a hint at like that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off for too long, Kev.
Yeah, sorry.
But another thing that did stand out to me this time watching around is that there's no information really about Naota's childhood or family past or anything, but there are a couple things that are kind of weird to think about. Like, I think it's one of Amarao's like ladies who work in his control room say that like they're like researching Naota, and they say that his dad used to work as like an editor in a publishing house for like a counterculture magazine.
Yeah.
Until 10 years ago, which would have been when Naota was like 2 or 3 years old. And it's like, okay, how did he get from there to like writing his own zine while working in a bakery? You know? It doesn't... The kind of thing that doesn't make sense, but it's not like weird enough to be a joke, you know? Yeah, it's just a detail about this character's backstory that feels important, but we're not given any sort of...
It's so specific that you feel like it's kind of important, but it's like it's not mentioned at all, yeah.
Right, but I don't know what to make of it.
I kind of wonder if it was meant to be, you know, built upon it, if they had like more episodes, or if it was just an idea that was scrapped, but they kind of left that detail in there because, for whatever reason, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the dad is a really interesting character to me, but we can talk about it more later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and... yeah, overall, Naota is just... I just really love his character arc, I guess, and how he interacts with various people, and how it all like builds up into this whole picture of him growing up eventually, despite all the odds and everything that happens in the story.
Yeah. What would you describe as his character arc, really? Is it about actually growing up? Is it about like learning that he shouldn't have to grow up, or what do you think?
I would say it's a complex actually story. I feel like it's again depending on how you want to approach the series, because I feel like the most obvious approach is that Furikuri is about growing up. It's like a coming of age series, and it is about maturity. Because, as I've said, like just a couple of minutes earlier, that in this series there are like no reasonable or responsible adults, and Naota feels like he's the only person who can be that adult, who can be the voice of reason,
even though he's like 12 years old.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
Thing.
Yeah, that's the kind of juxtaposition of this all, and it puts a lot of pressure on him as well. Mental stress is evident by his behavior and like being so erratic, even though he tries to keep his cool as much as possible. And yeah, it's about that. It's about him, and then when he meets Amarao, it's very interesting because there are so many these lines that they talk to each other. Especially Amarao tries to give this, you know, somber advice that he does not need to hang around a weird, mature woman because there is no good that can come out of it, and all this, you know, symbolism regarding the bitter coffee and stuff like that. That Amarao didn't like. I believe he didn't like coffee at all, right? But he kind of forced himself to because he's an adult. And now
there's the scene where he's interrogating Naota after Naota kills his dad, and he's just like dropping sugar cubes into the coffee.
Yeah, he's trying
like
to sweeten the bitter coffee.
It's just like on a loop, and he just drops like 30 sugar cubes.
Yeah. And Naota himself tries to force himself to drink this bitter coffee because that's a sign of adult. You gotta be an adult.
You gotta drink you gotta like swallow the bitter pills, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like it all again comes together nicely in the very final scene where he
he's drinking goes around with his friends, or is it carbonated?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very nice touch, and how he, and essentially his story about growing up in this scenario, and how that he doesn't need to grow up or try to grow up that much, or
you can't force that
himself
shit. Like,
to grow
it's gonna
up.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the point of view. Another point of view is through Haruko only, because I believe one of the other sides is that Furikuri is about love. It's not even about romance itself. It's about love and about finding yourself in love. It's like,
I was gonna
Falling-
say,
Totally.
for a show that's like as sexually charged as Fulukuli, it's not even about sex. It's
Yeah.
it's about like emotions, or it's about emotional maturity a lot of the time. I feel
it's not about sex. It's about puberty mostly, because Naota
Yeah.
tries to understand himself.
It's a
and,
very
like,
sexually charged show. It
himself.
just isn't even about sex. That's kind of the
Yeah.
interesting part.
Right.
Yeah.
I've always thought, the way I've always thought about the romantic relationships in Fooly Cooly is that it's definitely a love story, but it's a really unconventional one in that it's not about like good romantic love or anything like that. It's about that feeling of like finding your first love, like that kind of that feeling that just completely takes you by surprise. You have no context for it. It becomes like the number one most dominating thing you have ever felt in your entire life, and then it passes, and often in a bad way. It ends poorly, and it leaves you a totally different person than you were before, and remains like a huge impact on you for the rest of your life, even though in the grand scheme of things nothing ever really happened that was
Okay,
that
now that
important.
you mention that, a lot of characters have that same problem.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much every character has that problem.
Right.
Holy shit.
So it's definitely a love story, but it's not about love being good. It's just about how love changes you for better or for worse,
Exactly, yeah. It's about the first love, I would say, even, because
Yeah.
that first love, it can change a person, and I feel like it's very evident by now how he was at the start of the series and how he ended up at the end of the series, and
Right.
that bittersweet emotions that he felt, and that loneliness and those tears and all of it, like, it shaped him, and that's the other side of Furikuri that I love a lot, and it also just one of the parts of his arc, I would say, that he, through this interaction with Haruko, who was, and that relationship was very unconventional, weird, unhealthy,
Very toxic.
even
Toxic.
Yeah.
in a way, yeah. But it's really hard to point it down with Haruko, honestly.
I wouldn't even say that his relationship with Haruko is toxic, Like, it's definitely not good, but it's not toxic in the way that like Mamimi's relationship with Naota is toxic,
Yeah.
Like,
a
that's
different
very
type.
clearly bad for both of them.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
Haruko and
Okay,
Naota
no, that was probably a bad way to put it. It's like it's like one of those things that's just not going to end well, kind of thing. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
They're not made for each other at all. Like, it's
Right.
it's like they kind of like, it kind of almost in a way it is similar, but not totally the same to like Naoto's brother and Mamimi, and that like they kind of found each other at a certain time, but they're like,
right.
for all intents and purposes, not built for each other at all.
Yeah, for one person it's just way more serious than for the other.
And it's just interesting again to compare Naota and Amarao, who both had feelings to Haruko, and how differently they apply these feelings to themselves, basically. Because Amarao became this vengeful sort of guy who was only driven by his work and his desire to avenge for himself, basically, because he was how would say
Used by Haruko.
There's a lot of parallels
used,
between him and like Naota.
yeah.
Like,
And Naota's lesson is completely different, because he managed to nurture these feelings into something else, something different, something more positive.
something
Yeah.
less bitter,
Constructive.
like coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's all these small things that add up.
Yeah. On the subject of Amarao, another thing that I had somehow in all my viewings never really processed until we started talking about it today, is that kind of running theme about, Naota, like, starts becoming a big shot, and then like the women in his life like aren't interested in interacting with him anymore.
Yeah, it's funny because Amuro like makes a move on like the one chick, right, with this big sniper rifle, and she's like kind of disgusted by that. I noticed that. I didn't even realize that until this watch. I was like, oh, he's kind of weird actually. Holy shit.
There's another scene in the 5th episode where Naota runs across like all his like 2 dude pals, and then Ninamori, like in their truck on their part-time job. I
love that a bunch of middle schoolers are just driving a truck.
Yeah. And they're like, we stick by the river so we won't get caught. But his 2 dude pals are talking about like, hey man, there have been all these rumors that like you piloted that robot and you saved the city from the satellite bomb.
Oh my god, everything. Is that an Evangelion reference? Well, actually, it might be, because those 2 characters are based off of Toji and the other dude from Eva, I think.
Oh,
that makes a lot of sense, but I never thought about that. Yeah.
I never knew about that as well, yeah.
But while they're describing like all the cool shit Naota did, Ninamori's kind of in the background, and she's got a popsicle, and she's very clearly just like very suggestively deep-throating the popsicle. Yeah. And then as
she
soon
like
as
bites on it, yeah.
Yeah, and then as soon as Naota's like, oh, well, I am a pretty big deal.
Like, oh my, I didn't. So
as
I noticed
soon as
that, like,
he starts saying that, she like bites through the popsicle.
She's like, oh no, fuck this. Oh my.
Yeah.
I noticed that, but like, I feel like I've seen that subconsciously for years now. But like, I noticed that she was like, essentially moving it back and forth in her mouth for every time that I watch it. But I didn't realize like after he starts being a dick, like she bites on it. Oh my god.
Right.
That's actually like really fucking cool.
And similarly, you see with Amuro, like he's also constantly trying to put on this like cool facade of like,
he literally wears
hey,
like
kid,
what, like seaweed for eyebrows.
I know things. Yeah. And then when he's like getting the haircut in the South Park parody scene where he's like, give me a haircut that'll impress a woman I haven't seen in a long time. It's got to be cool, but not too cool, and all this.
Yeah.
Is that he's also doing that same sort of like, I'm a big deal dude bravado kind of thing, and in reality he's like a huge loser who's just trying way too hard.
Quote unquote guitar that comes out of his forehead is not even a guitar. It's so lame.
Right. Yep. Yeah. He's just like a total blowhard.
Yep.
But that's another like theme and parallel that I had never picked up until literally today, after all the times I've watched Fully Cooley.
I feel like we're slipping to Amuro, but we could talk about him for a bit, I guess. Yeah, his character is interesting, especially because he's like a foil to Naota, and like a path not taken for him, because as I just said before, he's like all the consequences, all the choices that Naota could have taken, but wrong, basically, and all the things that could have gone wrong, and it's I feel like their interactions are just very interesting in general, and it's not like Amuro is just in general a negative character, because he says some good things, even though they're like superficial, but still. How about Naota needing to find his not chasing Haruko, needing to find his own place in the world, and not really messing around like with adults in general.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's a good advice, a good piece of advice, especially for kids. Like, kids stay kids, that's it.
Yeah. It's interesting, what we were saying earlier with like, the first love theme and everything, he's an example of not accepting when it's time to move on, because he has this really weird back and forth like mood swings where he hates Haruko now, but also he very clearly is still in love with her. And it's just like this obsessive, unhealthy perspective on a past relationship that in a lot of ways is kind of like Mamimi's too.
No, yeah. I was about to say, a whole lot of characters have like weird or don't get over past relationships in the show.
Yeah,
and
Haruko
characters.
too. You can see that the same way. She's also
she's
still
hunting after
obsessed with her
Adamisk,
first
like,
love
yeah.
of Adamisk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of the point of the series, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's not a ton to say about Amuro. You know, he pretty much exists just for that
He's
one
a cool
purpose.
character. Like, once you, like, think about him a lot, yeah. I like him. Cool.
Bex, what do you think about Naota?
Oh, I think I don't know. You kind of described him in a way that I pretty much agree with. I think he's, like you said, kind of, I wouldn't say blank slate, but just like, you don't know a whole lot about him in the beginning. But as the series progresses, you like kind of learn about him and you're like, oh, he's kind of a dick a little bit. A bit. But not a huge dick, but like, eventually he kind of comes around at the end, and that's nice. That's cool. It's not like I watched the show for Naota, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I watched the show for like things that happen to Naota or things that happen around him, obviously. Because this show is more about like relationships with characters as opposed to just certain characters themselves, if that makes sense. Yeah,
totally.
I guess we could. I have not much else to say about Naota. He's nice. He's cool. I like him, but not my favorite character. I was trying to think about who else is a major character besides like Ninamori.
You want to talk about Ninamori because she's your girl?
Okay, and
then we'll cover Haruko after that.
Yeah. So Ninamori is like another like tragic character in the show, obviously, and that like her problems are kind of different, or are not that connected to like the main cast, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Her problems are like kind of external, like they're touched upon, but they're not like, you don't see Ninamori's parents. She just talks about it like herself, if that makes sense. I don't know. Her episode is really, really good. It's hard to explain why I like it. I guess I like characters who are very much performing, but like when you actually talk to them or learn about them, they're actually like kind of dying inside a little bit. Not like literally dying, but like they're hurting a lot. They're in pain. I don't know. One of my favorite shows ever, Sopranos, does this really well. So that's kind of why I probably relate to this a lot. Because I think, maybe I'll get personal, but like, I have a hard time talking about like the problems within me, if that makes sense, or like my dilemmas. So I'll always come off like, oh, I'm okay. I'm kind of like the happy-go-lucky guy. You know, I'm the memes guy. But like, without getting too personal, like I've got my own problems. I've got my own issues, kind of thing. And sometimes it's hard to talk about it with people, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I guess that's why I kind of relate to Ninamori the most. That's why she's like my favorite. That's why she's my girl, I guess. But yeah.
I would say for me... Huh?
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just say something because I'm going to go for a long rant again.
Oh, go for it. I'm kind of curious what you have to say. You like Ninamori too a lot, right? Like
I like all characters a lot.
Yeah, no, of course. But
yeah, same.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if like, you were a Ninamori guy or if someone else was like also a Ninamori.
I like
fan.
her a lot as well. And third episode is also my favorite. I must say. I feel like third episode is just a very standout episode in the series overall because. In this series, in this very short show, 6 episodes, third episode is pretty much a filler episode because it doesn't really continue the story of Haruko and Naota, pretty much. It just kind of takes a complete detour and talks about...
It's a nice one-off episode, but it's a completely
different character who doesn't really relate to the main story that much. But it still talks and plays into the themes of the whole anime about... accepting yourself, accepting the world around you, and in this very playful and like crazy way. And that's why I really like this episode. I really like this
you mentioned
episode.
like Amuro being kind of similar to like Naota, but like Ninamori is kind of similar to Naota as well, in that she like very much tries to be an adult. But given her situation, she has to be one, I guess. But at the end of the day, she's just a kid. Like she can't handle that shit. It's really obvious that she can't handle it. I really like I was gonna say I really like the fact that she kind of she literally explains like her character resolution in like one of the I think it's like 5 or 6 that she's like she literally explains like how she like developed as a character like off screen. Like, oh, I talked to my parents and I cried for like 20 minutes kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
She literally like explains it. I'm like, you don't see that a whole lot. Like I get, or I guess you do see characters kind of like explain like their character development, but it always comes off as kind of weird. I guess it's like, okay, well, why would you info dump that? It's more like, oh, that seems like a thing that Ninamori would say, actually, if you know what I mean. Like, she's very much very honest. She's like weirdly, she'll lie, but like she's very honest when she wants to be honest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that honesty is what mostly stands her out from Naota, I would say. And she's like one step further in development, and that's why
she's honest with herself. You know, she's definitely not like an honest person.
She wears like two masks, but she's
also pretty manipulative.
Yeah,
she is.
She, I mean,
I just
in the
she's...
final scene, huh? Go.
Yeah.
In the final scene, she just says, like, when she's on the stage with her glasses, and she says they're fake.
It's fake.
Yeah.
Fake. Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that scene. I've never known what to make of that.
I feel like it's kind of let me formulate it properly. I feel like it's a play on her world outlook, I say, and her development, because even though she was honest in this episode with Naota and direct with her problems, she still feels like she needs this kind of protection screen, I would say, from the world.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, so if I'm gonna get like super too deep for you about this. So obviously the glasses are fake, right? And they are in front of her, as in this is a kind of mask that she puts on, or like a performance, right? But however, the person behind the glasses, the person wearing them, is totally honest. You can see right through her, kind of thing. Like this is who she is right behind it. She's very honest behind it, but like when she has it on, she's literally putting on a performance, which is why she's on stage. But maybe that's a little too literal of an interpretation, but that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah. It's like earlier in the episode when, you know, she's staying over at Naota's place and he like comes into his room and she's like in his pajamas and everything.
Pajamas,
and she's got the glasses on. And she's like,
that's her real self, by the way. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I don't want people to know that I wear glasses like I usually wear contacts. So I've never been sure. I don't know if it matters, but I've wondered, like, you know, was that a lie and were those the fake glasses, or is she like wearing contacts and fake glasses in the final scene?
Well, if she was wearing contacts, that would kind of fuck up what I just said in my interpretation a little bit. So I'm not totally sure. She could just be fucking with us. That's also she's very manipulative, so like there's that too.
Right.
I don't know actually. It's hard to tell. That's the kind of the fun thing is like there are things that are like not really like concrete in like their meaning. Like you kind of like have to like I guess sit there and think about it for a second. Like, okay, what does that mean exactly?
Right.
I guess that's something I like about the show. But
I mean the idea that she on the contrary tries to accept herself more by actually putting those glasses on, despite never wearing them before on public, pretty much. And still, she has to wear contacts because she's not completely honest. It's like a transitional phase between full glasses and contacts only, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Interesting. I gotta say, I also appreciate her USSR sweatshirt. That's just
that's a great shirt.
The style, the swag, the drip. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, I think an underrated thing in the show is like the style in the show. Like everyone's attire is like Naota's outfit is like super drippy. Actually, it's great. I love it.
Yeah,
it's very like 2000s, but it works still. Like you could obviously still see someone wear that. Yeah,
in the best way possible. Yeah, and. Yeah, going back to Ninamori before we go on a rant about the show itself and like its style, I guess, is going to be for a bit later. And I feel like she, as we said before, and like how she's similar to Naota, I feel like it's almost intentional that they are kind of paired together by the end of the series. It's implied.
It's interesting because there's even the scene where they do the chopsticks that they're just like standing together.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost implied that like they have to be like something more between them than it appears.
I ship it. I think that's a...
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a good relationship, but like they're cute together. So like, you know what?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, they're definitely the only pairing that you could imagine like actually working out in a good way.
Yeah. And especially with how proactive in a way Ninamori is as well. And Naota is not exactly a wimp, but he's still kind of less of a proactive person. I feel like they just have this nice dynamic where it could work out. So yeah.
I think they build off each other, if that makes sense. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, and their entire interaction in this third episode is also very good. So I just love this episode a lot. Even though it's so out of the way of the series, I guess. And like between the second and fourth episode, the fourth being absolutely crazy.
Fourth is the baseball episode, right?
Yeah, and
yeah,
the father's death, demise, and all of that. It's insane, yeah. So maybe it's a reasonable breather between these episodes, but I just love this episode a lot for whatever reason. So yeah.
No, I think it's a good breather room. Like, I mean, if you just had like heady episode after heady episode of like the story, it would be kind of like not as fun. I feel like it might be like a little too much, but like it's good to have like I wouldn't say filler, but like I was gonna say breather. That's a good way to describe it. I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So should we move on to the next character? I guess. Maybe?
I guess that'd be Haruko.
Yeah, I think it's Haruko.
Yeah,
Haruko.
What a piece of shit. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you guys know like the iceberg memes where it's like the surface level interpretation of a series, and then it just gets like deeper and deeper and crazier. I think the first level of the Fooly Cooly iceberg under the water is realizing that Haruko is the villain of the show.
Kind of an antagonist, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of an antagonist.
I would say she's the person that fucks shit up a lot of the time, so...
Right.
There are
that checks the box, yeah.
There are many things that people, like, from different, like, point of view. Items could be an antagonist. Amaral could be an antagonist. Haruko herself could be an antagonist. So, it's like, it's in a way how you view the show overall. But Haruko is definitely an antagonistic person who really tries to use Naota or anyone else.
She uses anyone in her disposal.
Yeah, at this point. She used Amuro in the past. She tried to use Naota's dad.
Yeah. And
if it wasn't Naota, it would just be someone else. It's not even Naota in particular, yeah.
And it's very just interesting how all these actions that she takes are reflecting on Naota himself. And how, despite Haruko controlling Naota a lot, he still like overcomes her expectations in many ways, especially after the start of the fourth episode.
Yeah.
So
having said all that, though, I think it's interesting. One of my takeaways from this watch through actually was that Haruko might not be as bad as I thought she was. You know, I got the feeling this time that it might not all be 100% like calculated manipulation. There are a few moments where like, when Naota gets jealous or before he like starts to accept things, and really get into her where he's like, well, why me? And she's like, well, it has to be you. And something about those felt kind of genuine to me this time. And there are also scenes where she's like talking to the cat that's voiced by Ano, and is like the way she communicates with her superiors in space police, where they're accusing her of like taking so long because she's sandbagging the missions because she's like developed feelings for this Earth boy, and she's like, no, don't be ridiculous, that's not it. But it felt kind of like that felt kind of insincere, maybe. I don't know. I kind of got the feeling this time that she wasn't all bad.
I would agree with you here. I don't think she's all bad. I feel like, while he definitely has her eyes on the goal, and that being stealing atoms and stuff, but she still, not values Naota, but I guess she kind of cares in her own way. She does not completely disregard Naota and his feelings. Maybe she toys around with him, but she understands that Naota is sincere in his attitude towards her, and she doesn't really get in that way. Like, she doesn't really, while she doesn't really give any false promises, I guess. She's still like around, and how to put it properly, plays the role that Naota probably wants her to play, I would say, in her life. So yeah, in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. You know, he's definitely just a means to an end for her, but she's not trying to hurt him.
There is no reason for her to hurt him, so...
Right.
Yeah. And she's also kind of a broken character in a way, because of how she's so fixated on atoms.
Yeah.
And there are like lots of things to...
Again, another person who's just never gotten over another, a past relationship.
Right.
Yeah, and how she's kind of a shell, as said. It's even hard to describe. Like, there are some essays that I read and like viewpoints on Haruko who completely disregard her as a character, but mostly how view her as the catalyst for Naota. But I feel like it's not completely correct. Or maybe it's a bit simplistic way to look at her.
I agree. She's definitely a character in her own right.
Yeah, because she kind of, like, in her way, how she tries to stand against medical mechanica, how she tries to kind of be the chaos, be the catalyst of this all, like, story. And what I'm trying to say is how she drives the story forward, and how she has her own... Like the entire story still revolves around her. Like, I would say that Naota is the main character, but... Every character relates...
it starts with, like, Naota, but it kind of ends with Haruko, if that makes... I wouldn't say it ends, but, like, it very much... She becomes part of, like, very much one of the main characters of the show. Yeah. Or the story becomes very focused on her,
Yeah. And... I forgot what I want to say, even. But yeah, she's very important to the whole narrative, and her story is kind of tragic as well, because... it feels like she will never find what she wants, basically.
Yeah.
And it seems like she has like a bottomless hole, if that makes sense.
She's chasing the dream, and I feel like she realizes that she will never catch it. And it's like her own final destination journey. And in that way, she will never be complete, because she will never find... Like, it's very... When you look at Haruko, it's this very finite, like, definite feeling that she will not change her ways. Like, she will not probably change.
She is who she is at this point,
And she will probably never complete her goal as well. So
right. I think that actually the only thing that the sequels did that, like, added value back to the original, not to say it's, like, the only good things in them, because there is others, but the only thing in the sequels that, like, you can take away from them and cause you to, like, enjoy the original a little more, I think, is Progressive's take on Haruko. And, exploring a little more of what her feelings are towards Atomisk. Because there's this really interesting like duality that I've also seen a lot of people talk about, where it's like, what does Haruko want from him? It's like she both wants him and wants to be him, like she wants to catch him and like be a part of him, but she also wants to like consume him and just have his power. And I really like the way that Progressive kind of explores those two sides of her.
Is it bad that like Haruko is like my least favorite character of the show?
I mean, that's okay, but
yeah,
I feel like she
of the main characters, she's probably my least favorite. Yeah,
she's probably
she's not bad. It's just like there are like more interesting characters to watch for me personally.
Right.
I would say she's my favorite female character in the show, because I still believe Naota is my favorite character overall.
Okay.
And she just kind of a face of the show as well, and it's kind of a topic that I want to talk about. And Furikuri is like a way show where, I mean, it's even in the title, Furikuri, like it's cool. And Haruko is just a very cool character who embodies everything that was cool about teens back in that era of like 20 years ago, or like 90s especially. Yeah. She's riding a Vespa, a very, very cool moped bike, whatever you call it. And it's a fucking yellow. It's so cool.
Yeah.
She plays on the guitar. And it's also a very cool thing to like do, especially in 90s for kids. Like if you know how to play guitar, you're basically a soul or the center of the company, because everyone is going to stick around with you, like because you are going to
nobody
play some
likes
songs,
the bassist.
sing. Yeah.
Man, that as a person who plays the bass, I feel that that's too true, actually. No one gives a shit about the bass.
No one gives a
shit about the bass, but when you're like the only person who can play instrument in the group, it's still like you're one of the centers of attention. And like the way how Haruko plays is like so bombastic and explosive. And then and baseball as well. And that's also like, it's even said in the show itself, with Naota's brother, when you are successful at sport, you will get it all. You will get fame, you will get girls, you will get everything. And Haruko herself can do it all. She's so cool. And I feel like it's one of the reasons why Furikuri was so successful, or like such a great product of its time, is because it embodied everything together, all of these things that were cool about subculture of teenagers back in the day.
Yeah,
and
totally.
It all played together nicely in this kind of coming of age story, because it was all before Naota, basically. All these cool things that he was like maybe even unconsciously striving for, fame, recognition, acceptance and stuff like that, they were all before him in this kind of symbols. And the Pillow soundtrack as well. It's all guitars, it's all this cool music that was tying it all together, and again, like even more emphasized in how like the coolness of it all, So yeah, Haruko is just like a catalyst, the epicenter of this coolness, and her character design, her character, like just her character overall, it just that coolness.
Yeah, it's a show about like a hot alien chick beating up robots with a guitar. It doesn't get more early
weird,
2000s
like,
cool than that.
robots, I might add.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like it just maybe I'm going a bit skipping ahead a bit, but I feel like it's something that probably would not work that well today, because
I was
just
actually
different...
I came to the same kind of similar conclusion. I was watching the sequels. I'm like, it's just not the same. It's like, it's very like I feel like the original is very much a lightning in a bottle kind of situation,
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know if they tried to recreate in the sequels, but it's just like it just doesn't work anymore. Maybe not work anymore. It just doesn't hit the same. If that makes sense.
We'll talk about it later, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly just mention that it's just because they're just different generations, and back then it's just very cool to play guitar, play baseball. It's even like there's just so many cool things, like this robot, having a robot. What kid didn't
having a robot to make bread or just do daily tasks for you, like pick up Hustler magazines, like let's go, dude.
Yeah, which kid didn't even try to dream about it, or like even Mamimi's game. I actually really wanted something like that when I was like a kid as well, because like having a pastime during like long school recesses, it's fine, it's fun, and like playing with friends as well. Like just so many these little cool things that kind of tie it all in together, and it's just like all of the things just kind of work together really well in Furikuri. That's like one of the biggest takeaways from the show, I would say.
Yeah, it's lightning in a bottle is absolutely the right way to describe it.
Yeah, perfect way. Yeah. And Haruko is kind of, again, she's hit or miss with many people, and I feel like she's just a symbol of the show as well. If I hate Haruko,
she's kind of the mascot of the show at this point.
Yeah,
I don't want to I don't know if objectify her if that's the right word, but like downplay her as like a mascot. But she's like, when people think of Furikuri, they think of like Haruko on a Vespa.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's iconic.
I mean, just look at the like marketing materials for
even
the
like
sequel seasons.
The sequels, like Haruko was slapped all over that shit.
Yeah, like they had Haruko narrating all the trailers. They had like the key art of like naked Haruko
they made
covered
sure to
in
announce
paint.
that the Pillows were doing the soundtrack for the sequels. Like it's part of like that whole like style is like part of the marketing for it.
Haruko and the Pillows are two main like pop things about the show, I would say. And going back to Haruko herself. God, I forgot what I wanted to say. Yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry.
Do we want to like maybe move over? I don't know how much you guys want to talk about the original series. Do we want to move over to the sequels now or no?
I wanted to say a couple more things, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to comment about like the setting, I guess, overall. It's very interesting.
I'm really curious what you have to say about the setting.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit understated in many reviews and in the show itself. But who is Haruko herself? She's basically a rebel who tries to steal another rebel, essentially, from a corporation whose main idea is to flatten all planets and to essentially
smooth out the wrinkles in the brain.
What are you saying?
They say smooth out the wrinkles in the brain.
Smooth out the wrinkles, Like, it... you could, like... I guess, derive many things out of it. Maybe it's like a dystopian thing where you just make all people think the same and, like, even it all out, like, without any foreign thought, you know? Like, kind of a dystopian thing. Or maybe just stripping all planets from resources, that kind of thing as well. Like,
it's very punk rock, actually. I was gonna say, like, Haruko, like, defeating, like, the giant metaphorical iron in the sky.
Oh, it's so punk
very punk rock.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very rebellious.
Yeah, it's good.
Rebellious.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and and this symbol of iron is just such a huge, colossal thing that hides the sun. That
I didn't even realize it hides the sun. That's actually kind of interesting.
It hides the sun. It's how's the word in English? God, my brain is just completely fried.
You can just say it in Russian, we'll get it.
No, just like try like all the steam around the
Oh yeah, they're
Iron
surrounded
as well.
by steam and clouds all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it just completely blocks the sun, and it just kind of symbolizes this cruel, ruthless machine that kind of mostly destroys everything, and no one is even noticing it because even like a bit of it was in the first episode where Haruko was trying to sneak up into like the iron, right? And she even said that like there's no entrance or exit in this like whole situation.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
And it's like just such a weird thing where everyone is crazy in this kind of small town, as it's evident, but at the same time it's all kind of normal, and it just feels like maybe they even lost their ability to think it, or like something like that. And
they're all kind of gone off the deep end a little bit.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to happen next? And even Naota himself says there's like nothing even anything type exciting happens in this town. So who knows what's going to happen? So in that way, in that context, it's interesting how Naota tries to team up with Haruko and like overtake Medical Mechanica, and
perhaps that's maybe, sorry to cut you off, but maybe that's why like he's like kind of, I don't know if attraction is the right word, but like he has this like connection with her almost, like there's like similarities between them. Is like, oh, that's why he kind of like forms this relationship sort of in a way. If that
in a
makes
way,
sense.
yeah, in a way, I would say. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and in general, how maybe it sounds pretentious, but like going against society, going against the societal norms, and like maybe even like being honest with yourself, being pure, being like something like that. It's just maybe something that corporations do not want you to realize, and yeah, it's kind of maybe a tangent, maybe too deep for you, but I feel like there's something to be said about it anyway. So
Yeah.
Okay, I have a story observation that you mentioned, the whole steam and smoke in the clouds. This is probably really pretentious, but something I've always appreciated about the show, just on an aesthetic level, is the background art, how unfinished it is. I wouldn't say unfinished, but it's like very you don't see like the far background art for some things. You see like a lot of it looks like it's kind of not there, if that makes sense. Like let's say you see like something in the shot, but like you don't see all of like the city in the side. It's kind of like faded away. I almost, so this is me being really pretentious, but I almost can interpret that as like that's a visual representation of like the smoke, like it's all around.
It
you.
is, yeah.
The steam and the smoke is like all around you. Yeah.
You probably
Sorry, that was
that
just something I just like put together at
Yeah,
this
Yeah,
point.
I've never
probably
really thought
noticed
about that, but all the backgrounds are really hazy.
Yeah, it's hazy is the right word to
You
describe
probably
it. Yeah.
noticed that pretty much every time
But I never
the
made that
backgrounds are
connection
yellow.
to you.
They are
Yeah.
not even blue, they're just yellow.
I can
because,
say
like,
that yellow
clouds.
is a great way to, because like last year there was like serious wildfires in my state, right? Like
Yeah.
20 miles from where I live, and like for weeks on end, like a couple weeks, the sky was yellow, like the air was yellow, everything was smoky, and I'm like, wow, that is actually like a truly hazy experience. So now that I rewatched that after the wildfires, I'm like, I kind of make that connection now that you mentioned the whole smoke, everything. But yeah, sorry, that was just something I wanted to
Yeah.
put out there.
And
Thought that was interesting.
one more thing to talk about really quickly, and that we probably need to touch upon, is that it's a pretty damn potent comedy, you know? It's a really funny show.
Yeah,
In
it's
general.
It is
true.
actually really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Even
it's-
like what 20 years later, it's actually like still funny as shit. Actually,
Yeah.
love it.
It's
The
so
like cut to
surrealistic.
inside their like trailer between takes, quote unquote, of the,
Oh my God, I
the
lo-
slow
I
mo
love
scene
that.
in the first episode.
The manga
where-
scene is like so
Yeah. Manga
fucking
scenes.
good. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
But,
that they do like another manga scene is like in either like 5 or 6, and like we can't do that anymore. It actually
Yeah.
costs a lot of. It's not money, but it's like it's
It's in
very
6.
time consuming. But we
Yeah.
don't want to look like we're lazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
No,
my God.
it wasn't even that. It's like Naota's dad interrupts the manga scene halfway
Oh,
through.
yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah,
we
no,
can't
'cause
do
it's
this
an
again.
unfinished, like,
It's way too
storyboard.
hard. It takes too much time. We did it once, and even then, people accused us of being lazy.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Love it. I love Naota's dad. So, like, he's like not really like he's somewhat important to the story, but like he's like literally there for just funny statements at all times.
He's a weird character. I really like him.
But I love it.
He's like such a just gross human being.
Yep.
I'm gonna write a book called The Deep Mysteries of Ava one of these days. It's gonna be great.
That's another thing. I love how like packed with references to stuff.
Dude, he's like such an otaku. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's like there's one that I caught for the first time this watch around because I've been watching a lot of Lupin the Third.
Yeah, no, he does the Lupin jump out of his clothes and then gets
he does the Lupin jump out of his clothes by
Haruko, yeah.
In that episode, that like whole episode, which is like the guns one where they're like dueling for Haruko's affection, he's like wearing the iconic like Lupin outfit
he
with
says
like
that,
the red
that,
jacket
like, Monkey
and tie.
Punch actually prefers like his favorite is like I think the red jacket, right? Like
yeah, he's wearing the red jacket, and he's got Lupin's Walther pistol. And when Naota's like, why are you just like that? He's like, oh, you like snobby boy, you prefer the old green jacket, huh?
Castle of
Big fan of Castle of Cagliostro. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know. It also referenced South Park before it was cool.
Oh, dude, so I actually noticed a couple of other South Park references. There's a one where there's a cut where Naota puts his hood over his head and he starts like kind of mumbling something. I'm like, I didn't realize that was just a reference to Kenny from South Park. It's like for a couple seconds. There's another one where something breaks or explodes and you see like a little Kenny keychain.
It's when Ninamori crushes the teacher's car.
Yes. And I was like, oh, look, it's Kenny. Dude, they killed Kenny, you bastard.
Yep. And like this, you probably remember where like this fights between Amarao and Haruko, like with slow-mo and stuff. It's probably a reference to The Matrix because it was all hot and popular back then. It just came out.
Yeah, no, this is very much of a product of its time, but like in the best way possible. It's aged so well, actually.
Yeah, and my probably favorite joke in this series overall is how just, again, in the third episode where Ninamori came into the house and like they were just eating curry together, and how Kanti was just sitting with them, and she just completely like took him as a television.
Just eating like curry. Eating the curry or something.
Yeah, he's like spooning the curry into the grill on the front of the TV. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so wholesome, I would say, even.
Yeah. It's great.
So and it still feels just so many things to talk about the show and the soundtrack that we talked about already.
I love that soundtrack so much. I listen to that like on its own, like all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Puts me in a mood.
It's just also interesting how many people are saying that Furikuri is just too short. It doesn't. And I'm like, no,
it's like we said before. It's very dense for 6 episodes. It's a perfect.
I feel like it's because there are so many things that's happening in the background that are only mentioned like tangentially. For example, that there's some kind of war is happening, like in the space between some kind of space corporation about pirates, and that this little town is just one battlefield of all this that's happening, and there are these all agents and like Amaral trying to like capture other pirates and stuff like that, and all these red flashes like the 4th episode, why is this comet and stuff like that. Like all of this is not answered like
but
directly.
I'm okay with that not being answered. I don't actually care that much about that.
Many people do. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know, some people have this weird obsession with like lore being explained, and I'm just sitting here like, nah, it doesn't matter, bro. It's not that important.
Right.
You're missing the point of Fooly Cooly if you care that much about like lore explanation, I feel like.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of, why the show is presented in that so bombastic, fast-paced way it is that, from Naota's perspective, he just kind of gets thrust into the middle of this, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's just like ridiculous things happening around him. But all he really cares about is the interpersonal relationships, and that's all we're given to focus on too. The other stuff, it's not explained because it's not relevant.
It's not the salad, it's the dressing on the salad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like the show does a good job of making you feel like a 12-year-old in the middle of a whole bunch of weird intergalactic bullshit, if that makes sense.
And you don't need
That's why
to
probably people are like very
it.
confused because they're treated like a 12-year-old, like, oh, no, what the hell is happening kind of thing.
Naota doesn't need to know all of it, and we don't need to know all of it. Like, it's happening, and it's okay. That's fine.
If you pick up on it, like, that's great, but it's not like it's not like it's important. You know?
Yeah.
That's another thing, like, that I don't like about, I guess I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like that is something that the sequel does a little bit, which is like give more lore stuff, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't fucking care.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do we think we're good to move on to progressive now?
Can I just say for a show that's 20 years old, the show still looks fucking amazing.
Oh, it looks phenomenal.
Oh my, I've seen people like, so this is me going to complain about certain people. I'm not going to name names, but I've seen people in like figures in the anime industry. They had a podcast once, and they were talking about this came out like when Fooly Cooly Progressive was airing, and they were talking about how they went back to the original Fooly Cooly, and they thought like it didn't age as well like visually, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, what are you smoking, my dude? Like, what the fuck?
The animation is still insane.
It looks fantastic.
The direction is insane. Yeah,
oh my god, the storyboards in certain episodes are like the baseball episode has this very off vibe about it. It's like kind of creepy actually, especially with all the scenes with like Naota's dad. It's like weird as hell. It's all shot very like dark. It's kind of cool actually. I dig it. But the show is like, I don't know, it's like it's visually impressive coupled with this like magnificent like punk rock soundtrack. It's like an audiovisual like masterstroke that you'll probably never get like in your lifetime kind of thing.
For sure.
It's fantastic. I love it. God.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Naota swinging the bat in episode 4 is my favorite scene in the whole show.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, for a long time, my favorite scene was actually in the opening episode. Not the opening of the episode, but the first episode where the robot first comes out of Naota's forehead on the bridge.
Yeah.
And the song that was playing on that whole thing was just amazing. But I guess my favorite moment is probably like the final fight at this point. I think that's something I always come back to.
Like pirate power Naota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the Ninamori episode with like the weird monster robots at the school. I love the cartoony like feel to it. There's even the soundtrack is kind of like whimsical. It's not even like punk rock. It's like this like string quartet that has this very like almost like Tom and Jerry feel. Like they even have like the speed. Like I think at one point Haruko runs and her legs turn into like a spinning wheel kind of thing.
Yeah,
I love that. That's such a great little detail.
It's funny because the punk rock soundtrack is so iconic and
prevalent,
so core to
and then
the
it comes
identity.
like out of nowhere. There's like something different. Yeah.
Whenever they do something different, it really stands out. Like there's another one in the third episode, like after Ninamori goes berserk, and Haruko like whistles for the Vespa, and it plays like the Western like horse riding music as it like gallops across the landscape towards her. Yeah.
It's good shit.
Yeah, to sum it all up, I would say the one word to describe Furikuri for me would be inspirational. Like, it just kind of inspires me overall, and I don't know, like, anytime I rewatch it, I just kind of feel uplifted and, like, motivated.
Yeah, totally.
I feel that. All right, do we want to, finally talk about the sequels? Sigh.
Do we have to?
I think we should. I think we should. I think they're good stuff to say.
I guess we should. I want to get this out of the way. Like, I don't think the show should have really ever gotten a sequel, low-key. No. I don't know why it got a sequel, like, almost 20 years later. It just, like... The thing is, like, I'm not really about sequels for shows that I think ended well. Like, so, like... Okay, well, I won't even get into this, but, like... It seemed like it kind of came off like a cash cow a little bit. Like it was, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but it did seem like it was remade for like, because it was partially funded by like Cartoon Network, right? By Toonami, because it was such a huge smash hit for Toonami back at the time that it was airing. I guess they wanted to like, you know, relive the magic, or like see if they can like essentially see if lightning can strike twice, but it's like we said, it's a lightning in a bottle moment, so it's like that doesn't really happen kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't think it's that
maybe
cynical,
I'm just cynical
because
as fuck, but
I remember seeing like when they got announced that, you know, the guy who does programming for Adult Swim now is like, yeah, I watched this when I was a teenager and loved it. And
so
now
I guess maybe it's more of a passion project, but I'm just cynical,
so I think it was like this guy who watched this thing on Adult Swim when he was young, now being like, I'm in charge of Adult Swim. Let's make more of that thing I love.
I mean, to be fair, that's always been Adult Swim, is just making like things that people just want to make, whether it's like whether or not it's commercially successful, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But you kind of alluded to earlier, Bex. Do you think that just like because of, you know, the passage of time and the fact that that aesthetic is, you know, kind of dated now, do you think that it was impossible for there to ever be a good sequel?
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good question, because it's like, it's hard to say like, oh, well, they couldn't do it twice. They certainly couldn't do it with the aesthetics they did in the first series. Obviously, It would just be like a carbon copy if they tried it again. It just wouldn't work. But it's like, I don't know how you would go about that. And it's like the ways that they went about it were, one way was bad, and then the other way was like kind of not that bad, actually. I'm of course talking, the bad would be progressive and the not so bad would be alternative.
Yeah.
Progressive, if you think about it in a word sense, is progressing the story. It's also obviously a reference to progressive rock, right?
Yes. Why I call the original Fooly Cooly classic.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
You got to
actually.
keep the rock references going.
Yeah, but an alternative would almost. The thing is, it's like it's not even a hard sequel. It's like it's just a different setting with.
It's like a prequel question mark.
It's a what question mark?
A prequel question mark.
Is it a prequel? Well, I think is it suggested that it's a prequel?
I think it's suggested that it's a prequel.
Oh, I guess maybe I'm thinking too hard about this.
That's a common theory, at least.
That would be interesting, but I always thought of it as like a sideline kind of thing. Like it's a side story. I don't know if it's necessarily a prequel, but I don't know whether I don't know if there's enough evidence to. Well, actually, I think there's evidence towards the end that like makes it seem like it is a prequel, isn't there? Isn't that like kind of the idea? Or am I thinking of something else?
It could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like Haruko like doesn't seem to know what NO is yet in that series. Like, she doesn't recognize Canty when the like robot model that he's one of shows up to like fight them in the last episode. I've heard that in like the original concept for the original series, although it never like made it explicitly into the show, it's that it was supposed to be set on Mars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how true that is, but I have heard that that's the case.
Interesting. I'm not gonna like challenge you on that. I'm just like kind of like, I've never heard that before. That's actually really fascinating. That would be a whole different show, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I'm like, oh man, that's a tough one. I'm not really sure. I guess maybe I'm overthinking this question, but I'm not sure they could recreate that, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's like they could do a sequel. I don't know if that was your original question. I might be thinking about something else, but
yeah, no, that was my original question. Was it ever possible for there to be?
Do you think it's possible? Like, just to throw it back.
I don't want to say it can't have been done, but I was on record as saying, even before the sequels came out, that even if they were somehow as good as the original, that it would still be like a net negative, I felt, because I think so much of what makes Fooly Cooly so powerful is how short it is. It's brief, it's punchy, it's so much stuff condensed into like one sitting. Like, honestly, I think the best way to consume the show might even be just like sit down, treat it as a movie, watch it all through.
I couldn't slow roll this shit out. It's like you It's actually like a very to treat it like a very long movie almost, if that makes sense.
Not even a very long movie. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay, that's for someone with ADHD. That's a very long time.
Okay. I mean, these days when I think of a long movie, I think like there are blockbusters that come out now that are 3 hours. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, actually.
You know, like Fully Cooley, you can just do that. You can just shotgun it all, consume it in one sitting, and just like have so much to pour through. If there was another 12 episodes that were as dense and as powerful and as moving, you couldn't do that anymore. You know? Like, I think although it would be great to have more content of that same quality, I think you would lose something by losing that experience of just getting it all in one.
It's a very unique thing. Like we said, like a lightning on a bottle. And it's like, it's almost like wouldn't even make sense to like recreate that, if that makes sense. Like, it just seems like you're never going to like, I guess like, you will never hit that same high or that same peak, if you will. You're just going to make something that's like, will always be kind of inferior, like you said. It will always be, I don't know, it will never be the same kind of, never be the same, you'll never reach that same high, is what I'm saying.
Right.
I guess. I don't know. How do you feel, Cav?
I thought about it for a long time, actually. I feel like it was possible to make sequels good. So, as I said, and we said all before earlier, that Furikuri original was very much a product of its time. It contained all the cool things that were popular among kids and teens of that time. So, a logical continuation would be
So you would say the Progressive is kind of a product of its time as well?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, and that was the issue. It tried too hard to lean on the same ideas, replicas of the ideas of the original series.
Oh, I see where you're going. And then alternatively is actually kind of a product of its own
Alternative
time, in a way,
is completely different beast. It's like not even.
Yeah.
It's kind of its own thing. But in general, if it probably try to lean on what is cool among kids in this generation, maybe Zoomers even, I don't know. And if they approached it with the same passion, with the same creativity, with the same unorthodox style, then it probably would have worked.
But they did not.
It's a long list of if.
Yeah.
There is also an example of a show that was brought back after a very long period of nothingness, that also had a really good ending and didn't really need a continuation. Yet there was one, and it was really good. And it was very different. I'm talking about Gunbuster and Diebuster.
Oh, yeah, no, that's like one of the very few
how long was there between those two?
I believe it was 15 years.
Gunbuster was 1980s. Diebuster is like, it came out after Fulikuli. It's like 2003 or something, 2004. I think.
Oh wow, okay. I didn't realize there was that
years.
much of a gap.
Very long time afterwards. Let me look that up.
And Diebuster was radically different from Gunbuster. Like, completely different show.
Oh yeah, totally different tone,
different
actually.
aesthetics,
I think it was made by the Fulikuli guy, right?
ideas. Yeah. Yeah, and it was a completely different show with different feel to it, aesthetics, ideas. But it all tied in together really well by the end, where when Diebuster was getting more serious, more moodier, and it hit very hard with the ending, which kind of all it tied together very nicely. So it is possible. If you make this own thing and present it as its own, creation, with actual creative talent behind it, it could work. But again, it's so many ifs, so many conditions to fulfill, that when these sequels were announced, I felt like it's probably going to be a fail, because it just such.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw the poster for it, I was like, maybe I was judging way too soon, but I just had maybe I'm cynical, but I just thought, okay, this is not gonna work. I don't think this will.
I never expected them to be good, but I had hope.
I was gonna watch it because I'm a Fulikuli fan, and that's just okay, you gotta see it, I guess. But it's just I wasn't looking forward to it, I guess.
Yeah, it's it can't be good unless.
I mean, so like, how did you guys feel as opposed to just to move from like how we felt going in, but like now to actually how we feel about the show? What do you guys like think about it?
Well, I gotta say, the first episode of Progressive is awesome. It is
actually,
so
like,
good.
Not a bad first episode, I would say.
I watched the first episode of Progressive and I was like, holy shit, they did it. Like, this is fully coolly. Like, they pulled it off. I thought that episode was perfect. Even on rewatching, I don't have a single complaint.
I really like that episode where they introduce Haruko and she just talks and talks and talks in like
and her
the
voice
classroom.
like gets crazier and crazier as she goes into monologue.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
As you start another regrettable day as modern day youths in our modern day society, I, as the clear structural winner in life, have one thing to tell you. Something like that, yeah. I loved that first episode. I think the opening scene is super cool. They're playing Thank You My Twilight through the whole thing. They use it in a really clever way where the like beeping in the background of it transitions into Hidomi's alarm.
Yeah, so that is actually pretty dope. Now that you mentioned that.
Like, they've got the introductory scene in the classroom with Ide and his pals. They've got like the banter down with them perfectly. They've got
I love that he's like, yeah, chicks are gonna dig art museums.
Yeah, you know that's a real life art exhibit.
Really?
Yeah.
It looked very specific not to be.
Yeah,
like,
it's
real,
called Megadeth by Tatsuo Miyajima.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I'd go see that. It looks kind of cool.
You should Google it. It's pretty cool what it's all about. But they've got like the real life art exhibit. They've got him being like, oh yeah, I know what chicks are into. They've got like,
he's like, yeah, I'm gonna swim in so much pussy after going to art exhibit.
They've got the banter with his friend who's like wearing the skirt. And he's like, why are you wearing that? And he's like, anybody can wear whatever they want. If you try to attach gender to fashion in these days, like, they'll throw you in an old folks home. He's like, yeah, I get that. That's fine. Stop showing me your underwear.
Right.
It was awesome. And then it just fell apart so quickly. Like, the second episode of Progressive,
I'm not gonna lie, I stopped caring around the second or third episode.
The second episode is so bad. It's when we got to the beach episode, I'm like, I don't
fucking care.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh no, that's the one I'm thinking of. The beach episode was atrocious. The second episode is just like weird and not really very appealing, but the third episode is garbage.
I will say I like the fifth episode mostly for the art style change. I thought that was dope as fuck.
I agree with that.
That was cool as hell.
I had forgotten they did that until I rewatched it.
Oh, there's also that opening... Is that the same one with the opening scene that's done by one of the Yoshinari brothers?
I don't know.
There's one where there's like... Oh, it's really, really beautiful. I wonder if I can find it on like Sakagoboru or something. You guys can keep talking, but I'm going to find it.
Yeah. Well, what did you think, Kev?
I actually disliked it a lot, honestly. I didn't like it.
For what it's worth, I gave it like a 5, but I would probably say it's almost 3.
I gave it 3 myself. I really do not like Progressive at all. So I feel like it's just kind of a rehash of the same ideas of the original series, but without any taste or idea of how to do it properly. It's like the same kind of trying to go to this kind of wacky style with kind of a plot that barely makes any sense and kind of this kind of, coming of age story and Haruko being a disruptive mechanism of it all, and like all this kind of the plot with cosmic, I don't know, entities and stuff, but it's just done so, like, I don't know, so boring. I don't know. Yeah. It just doesn't work. And I feel like they just kind of tried to make Furikuri, and they really tried, but without any kind of like idea of how exactly to make it work. And the dialogues, they're just very banal and boring.
Alright, I found the clip. Sorry, not to interrupt, but I will post it in the Furikuri chat.
Cool.
It's actually one of the most beautiful things I've seen in the whole series for Progressive. It's that opening sequence.
Oh, this one, yeah.
This is really cool as shit, actually. Love this. I think it's the same episode that has the art style change. Super cool stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and it despite like all of these kind of neat things that there were in the series, it just felt very disjointed as well. Because
I was
as we
gonna say
talked
it felt
before,
empty a lot of the time. Like,
yeah, as we talked before, in Furikuri, all characters just interact with each other so tightly. Like, just all of their interactions make sense, and they're like no word wasted, basically. But in Progressive, like every character, it feels like they just kind of exist on their own, and
yeah, I was gonna say they all
have
have like their own thing going on, but none of it's like works together. If that makes sense, it's like
yep.
It's just like, okay, well, this guy's doing that, this person's doing that. There's a girl with the plant, and she makes money by being a rent-a-girlfriend, which is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. But other than that, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I don't care. I feel like it.
Again, these episodes that you talked about, the second and the third, they were just so slow, so painful. And the episodes after that, they were just completely bonkers. And it's not a bad thing, but
it's like a bad bonkers, and it's like that's saying something about Fooly Cooley. It's like Fooly Cooley is known for being bombastic and kind of crazy, but then there's like when Progressive does it, it's like it doesn't work. It's like, oh, that's awkward. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go now, kind of thing.
And they just barely made you care about the characters in the first place. So when it was all happening, we were just like, okay, all right.
Yeah, hell, even their manga scene in this one is not as good, honestly. I think the first thing that I noticed was like the production values were just like not great from the get-go. It was actually kind of, I mean, maybe it's because it's a TV series, but like maybe I'm being like unfair, but it's like because I'm comparing it to like the visual kind of masterstroke that is the original series. But like even the fight scenes are like a huge step down, I guess, a lot of the time. I don't know, I felt like I was watching like a very mid TV anime, and I was like, this is fully cool. We gotta do some fun stuff. And I do like that's kind of part of the appeal. It's like it's part of the dressing on the salad. Like, at least the thing is, like, this show is Progressive is like a shitty salad, and there's not even good dressing on top of it. It's not even fun to eat, if that makes sense.
I think you guys hit it right. The best word to describe Progressive is just empty. You know? There's so much nothing happening that's then just like punctured by them trying to be wacky.
It's funny because like I've seen it and I can't really tell you what it's about. Like at its core, if that makes sense. Like I couldn't really explain what Progressive is about.
Right.
Because like, I've seen it like 2 times now and I still don't really get it.
What is it trying to say? You know, the characters, like Hidomi has her whole like
Daddy
decay
issues.
Fetish going on. That's weird, but never seems to have any sort of payoff of like why she's like this or what it means on a character level. Ide is not a character. Ultimately, like he has no personality. He
other than I love Hidomi kind of thing. That's
like he doesn't say anything except like scream Hidomi's name while fight scenes.
Oh my
are
god,
happening.
it's so annoying. Like in later episodes, it gets so annoying actually,
and they're just so tasteless as well. Like you had this cool, really flavorful interactions in the original series with cool dialogues, non-banal like scenes and stuff, and here
another thing that helped was like the visual flair. For a lot of those dialogue scenes, there would be like, so like even if Naota was saying something, he would be like animated in a weird way. Like it would be just fun to watch him do stuff. In this, it's just like here's a panning shot of characters just talking. That's cool, fun, awesome.
Think of the final fight in the original, and then think that like the final fight of Progressive is like Hidomi and Haruko fighting each other over like which of them gets to have the boy they love.
Yeah, no, this is it's kind of weird shit. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's not good.
It just like completely misses the point. I don't know.
Yeah. And there are the whole side plots with like the old guys who are trying to
the
fight
guy who's
medical
the son of
Mechanico question mark.
I think.
Yeah, he's Amurao's son. There's like the guy in the dodo costume who like I don't even know what any of them were doing.
I don't know what all that shit at the fucking amusement park means. I really don't know what any of that means.
It doesn't seem related to any of the characters we're supposed to care about at all.
This feels like it was very. I'm sure. I wonder if like the production process for it was like very rushed or something. I don't know what it was like, but it just seems like there was maybe a bunch of ideas, but like not enough time or whatever just to connect everything or like put everything together. And this is like, well, we have to make this kind of thing. We have a schedule, sort of thing. Maybe that's just a problem with like TV anime production as opposed to making just OVAs, where you have a lot more time. And you can kind of do a lot of other things as opposed to you have restrictions as far as TV goes.
Right.
But I don't know. That's just me assuming that's why it is the way it is, or maybe they just wrote a shitty script and that's it. That's all. I don't know.
I don't know. One other thing that I think was good about Progressive, though, is that I do like Jinyu. I think that Jinyu is a good addition to the show. I was really disappointed when she got vored by Haruko.
I didn't really get that either. I thought that was odd. I just didn't.
I mean, it was definitely weird, and that to me was definitely like the final point at which I was like, okay, this show has nothing more value to offer me. I think she's great in the first episode. You know, like her convertible does the Akira slide. And then she like snaps the plate in half with her bare hands.
Yes, just so like it's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Jinyu was cool, and what I was saying earlier about how Progressive does do good things for Haruko, to a limited degree, but definitely there. I like seeing the like two sides of Haruko split into two different people. You have like the manipulative, possessive, crazy side of Haruko who like just wants to use people and take and have the power. And then you have the side of Jinyu who's, like, I wonder
if like Jinyu splitting the plate is almost a metaphor for like the two parts of Haruko almost.
Could be, yeah.
I was just thinking about that now. It's actually a really interesting metaphor, like Haruko being split into two personalities, literally and like metaphorically. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and Jinyu is like, I want to be with Atomisk again because he's amazing, and I want like that kind of freedom that he has, versus the Haruko Prime being like, I will become the Pirate King. I want his power. It belongs to me. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, this show sucks. I'm just like, I have nothing else to say. Like, it's just like, I don't know. That was the show. There was another show I watched as a week to week. And I was like more and more disappointed as time went on. I was like, wow.
I also gave it a 5, but after rewatching it today, I am going to drop it down to a 4.
I might have to give it a 4 because I was just like, I'll be honest, when I was watching it today, I was on my phone most of the time. I was like, I don't care about this shit.
Yeah, it's just so dull for some reason. And like, saying that Furikuri is empty is like the biggest insult you can give it.
That's the biggest insult because like Fulikuli is like full of just stuff.
It's the fullest thing. Yeah. It's just the fullest show I've ever seen in any video.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to start selling people on it like that. Like, it's full of a lot of. It's super full, dude. Like, there's no. It may be overflowing. Ooh, actually, that's kind of funny. Actually,
yeah, that is funny. I like that.
Overflowing. Yep. So, alternative.
Okay. So I like alternative. I don't think it's like a perfect show, but I do like the attempt a lot more than
I gave alternative a 7.
First of all, I think the age range is a big one. You have a bunch of high schoolers on their way kind of out of high school onto the real world, if you will. And like that's a kind of like, going into puberty, going into adulthood is like a whole another huge part of someone's life. It's changing, Right. I thought that was like, oh, well, that seems like almost like the logical conclusion. If you wanted to do another Fooly Cooly story, you would do it like a little bit later in your life before you're an adult, if that makes sense. Totally. Like you have to mature in other ways, not just being in puberty kind of thing. I like the characters. Like they're like likable. I like that it's like this teenage girl kind of dynamic in high school. It was fun to watch. Even though I'm not even in high school, I was like, this is kind of comfy. This is like easy breezy, super easy to watch. It was enjoyable. I don't know what else to say. It was like, Was it a totally different team that made alternative as opposed to
Progressive? Yeah.
Progressive?
Yeah,
okay, that makes sense
totally
because it has
different
a totally different feel. It's like it's vibey.
I was wondering while watching them today if they like even communicated at all.
I wonder about that too. Actually, now that you mention that, I kind of wonder like what if this was like how, because I know the first one was made by Studio Nut, I think, which is kind of funny actually.
Yeah.
That's funny. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is
Studio
funny.
Nut is good.
Yes. Let's see if what studio did alternative. Okay, no, that was also Nut, and it was a couple of other studios, so it looks like it was a joint project. But it looks like it was completely different. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, actually, no, it was the same director, it looks like.
Really? I could have swore I remembered that.
Yeah, no, it looks
teams.
like it's directed by the same person, which is interesting because they feel like totally different shows.
Yeah.
No, I've been the director and storyboards for different guys.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm on Mount. It says alternative has this guy as like chief director, and it says progressive is just director, so whatever that means. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of words.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably there was one guy like overseeing them both, but
yeah. But it feels
tips.
like they were just made like with totally different ideas and like agendas in mind. It seems like. Yeah, I like that. It's actually also the show looks a lot better in my opinion. A lot of the
just
fight
directed
scenes
better. It just
feels
like it's made with purpose.
Yeah, it was a lot more purposeful. It feels less empty. It feels like it's actually trying to say something. Which is always nice.
Yeah, and when there's just a show with a purpose, it means it usually has a better direction as well, and that's why it looks better.
Like
in general.
there is a direction to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head that like the teen comedy vibe is executed so well. Like I remember when I first watched it, at the end of the first episode when like robots started showing up, I was actually kind of disappointed because I was just really enjoying. It was like
weird because I'm like, oh, it's you know what, when I was watching, I watched like 2 episodes only this time around, but like, sorry to cut you off, but like I noticed that it's like a teen high school show, but with the occasional Fooly Cooly stuff happening.
Yeah.
It feels less like Fooly Cooly, and like Fooly Cooly is like there, but it's not like this is a real sequel. It's like, okay, what if we put Fooly Cooly in like a high school anime a little bit?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool seeing like the teen comedy drama going on with the backdrop of like these rockets shooting off towards Mars. That was just like
in a way that almost feels like the original Fooly Cooly. In a way, which is like what I like.
It was a
this
cool
feels like more
vibe.
like a successor to it than the actual sequel, if that makes sense.
It was a cool vibe that I think would have made for a better show, probably ultimately. But it's a very, very different thing from the other two, which is what makes it better than Progressive in large part. Also, just like the characters are fuller, they're more interesting. I liked them way more. I will say though, the big flop for Alternative is the last 2 episodes where Kana's pal Pets like fucks off to Mars and has like the last time they see each other, she's like, "Fuck you, Kana. I never really liked you anyway."
Oh yeah, that's a little. I do kind of remember that from the last time I saw
which
that
came
part. Yeah,
completely out of nowhere. That scene lost any power it had for me because I was just like, what? Like, where is this coming from?
Right.
And then the last episode where Kana like goes full pirate power and like transfers the entire human race to Mars. It's okay. I didn't have any problems with that. It was kind of like classic Gynax ending where things just like rapidly escalate in a way nobody could have expected, and it doesn't really make any sense. It was fine. I thought it was a fine way to wrap up the season, but it didn't make me feel anything. You know, for me, the whole show is really riding on the strength of like the first 3 or 4 episodes and just like the interpersonal dynamics of the girls.
Right.
I feel like the best accomplishment of Alternative is it doesn't try to imitate the original.
It's literally an alternative to it.
Yeah.
Which is like great.
Like, yeah, the main downfall of Progressive is because it was a very poor replica or an attempt of a replication of an original series. And
I think it's like a replica without understanding what made like the original good in the first place.
Right.
It's like a very anti-imitation. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And it just feels like Alternative tries to do its own thing, and it's good. Like the thought and the approach is commendable. And the series itself is pretty fun as well. And I would compare it as something like, Sorry Yuri, something like that, like a teenage sort of drama, like a place further in the universe or whatever it's called in English, right?
Yeah,
so like you have these girls. That's
a good comparison, actually.
Yeah, you have these girls who are like this kind of teenage and trying to, like, they have this tight group of girls who have like this rather difficult characters, like dreams and trying to achieve something, and they all kind of work together nicely as well. And it's all about adolescence and about trying to find yourself in the world, and it's all kind of campy and not really ambitious, I would say. Even it's like all this, like especially first episodes, they are just kind of there. And
it's
Haruko,
very grounded, I would say, as opposed to being
grounded.
Like,
that's a good word. Yeah. And Haruko is just kind of there vibing as well, not even doing anything that crazy or extraordinary. So it feels kind of fresh in a way as well. Like, you do not expect it from Furikuri, but it works because the writing is decent and the characters actually are executed well, and voiced over is also very good. Like, I really liked, especially voice acting in Alternative.
Yeah, I agree.
And overall style, as Bex said, it just feels purposeful and also flavorful, way better than in Progressive. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's like great or anything. It's just kind of okay,
it's nice.
Alright, it's fine, it's fun. But I just wish it had it, as Sinrus said, I guess, had a better ending and like had a better punchline overall, because it felt a bit, I don't know, not very, it didn't really feel like it was a proper finish for this kind of series, I would say. It was a bit too crazy, maybe even, I don't know. And it's fun. It's like a cute show with a nice message, and even has this kind of its own spirit, which was retained from the original. So it's okay, it's alright, but I definitely feel like it could have been better, like overall, if it had a bit more. I feel like this show was actually undercooked a bit. I feel like Progressive was kind of doomed, no matter the time or like cost to put into it.
Yeah.
But Alternative, I feel like it just could have a little touches to the final arc, and like some a bit rearrangement of probably like characters, and maybe it would have been better. And with all this immigration to Mars and stuff, and as you said, and all this atoms as well. I don't know. It feels a bit disjointed and a bit too crazy even. I don't know. So yeah, it's alright. I definitely enjoyed myself watching it. I just wish it could be better.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all on pretty much the same page there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's kind of the end of alternative, I guess. And I don't know, it kind of left me a bit miffed about the whole sequel thing. I feel like, again, they actually had some ideas, but like the amount of raw talent, raw ideas, and raw like passion, I just feel like it was just not there, unfortunately. And that kind of feeling of light in the bottle was just not possible to replicate. So yeah,
I feel that.
it's kind of sad, and I don't know. It just feel like not a product of passion, but more like a product of labor almost.
Yeah. So it would have taken like a real miracle to make these sequels be worth it, and they didn't pull it off. I don't think anybody ever really expected them to.
Yeah. But it's okay,
Yeah.
as long as we have the original series, honestly.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I think the one
will
saving
always be
grace
there.
of them really is that, they don't try to be like bold, like to use what's become a meme phrase, like subvert your expectations kind of deal to like recontextualize the original series or
Everything
anything,
you knew
Yeah.
about it is totally wrong.
Yeah, they don't try to do that. They don't do anything that can detract from just going back, watching the original 6 episodes, and being
No,
like,
it
yes,
seemed like there were
this
some
is
rules that they,
peak.
like, quote unquote rules they still followed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
some iterations kind of maybe muddied rules a little bit, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever. It's they exist, but if you had to watch one, it would just be alternative, probably.
Yep.
If you
I mean,
really
you
had
could
the
just
free
watch
time for
boss, kind of like make your own mind about them because they're kind of short anyway. So
it. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, if you really had like 2.5 hours to kill, you could do it if you really wanted to. But
I would definitely recommend alternative to people. I would say you might as well watch Progressive, but I can't recommend it.
yeah, if you really wanted to, you'd be like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to watch Progressive to watch alternatives. They're kind of their own thing. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's that.
That's kind of it, yeah.
Well, pals, any closing thoughts?
I don't have anything else to say. Like, Fully Cool is the GOAT. Not much else to say. Like, yeah, it's a great show. I love it.
One of the best they ever made.
One final question. What is Furikuri?
I still have yet to figure out what that is.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I don't know. I think it's very dependent on who you ask a lot of the time.
Isn't there a
Probably why
line
you're
in the
asking.
last episode of the original where Naota's dad is like, "You're the main character. You should know what it means." And he's like, "I have no
Right.
idea."
Yeah. Yep. So, I believe Furikuri is just about like being cool, Just
Yeah,
just being
It's something
cool.
you feel.
Yeah, it's something you feel.
It's a feeling.
It's
a
like
vibe,
in the
actually.
in the next episode previews in the original.
Oh,
they're
dude,
very,
the next episode previews are so
they're
good.
very
actually.
funny. There's one where Haruko.
There's one about cats, and
yeah,
then I
she's
realized
like,
that the next.
anime directors all love cats because
Except
they
for
don't have to
Oshi.
take care of them. They can barely even take care of themselves. Except for
Yeah.
Oshi. He's the only director who likes dogs. He thinks he's the dog himself.
I noticed that they talk about cats in that one, and it's right before the Ninamori episode.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that they actually mentioned cats numerous times in that episode.
Yeah,
I was like,
they-
oh my god, I didn't even put that together
They
until
do lead into the next episodes, but there's another one, I don't remember which episode it's the preview for, where they're like, it takes an idiot to do cool things. Like, that's what makes them cool. And I was
And
like,
I'm like,
yeah,
wow, that's kind of the series, actually.
yeah, that's what Fully Coolly means. That's how
Yeah.
I think I like to interpret the title.
Your favorites could never, honestly.
Yeah. All right.
Man.
Well, on that note, let's wrap it up here. Thanks for listening,
All right.
everyone. This is an episode we've literally been trying to make for like 3 years.
For years.
So, I'm glad we finally did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
It was fun.
We've got to do our plugs.
Do we have plugs?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like our...
I am so not used to this at all. This is like actually one of the first anime podcasts I've been on in years. Probably.
Yeah, I know.
I think so.
I've always been terrible at the plugs. Our Twitter is Tokyo Podfathers. At Tokyo Podfathers. Is there an underscore?
Nope. That's just we're just cool enough to have just one long name. Yeah.
It's at Tokyo Podfathers. Our YouTube is the R Anime Podcast. Join our Discord. It's cool. We've got a good thing going on there. The link is in
Is it a good thing?
The thing down there.
As someone who's there all the time, I have different opinions.
I've definitely seen a lot of worse Discord servers.
Oh no, yeah, it's actually, yeah. I can't argue with that.
Yeah. And on that glowing note, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep.
We'll be coming back at you with more podcasts.
Will we though?
Eventually.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Peace out.
All right.
Sweet. Bye.